Attendu que le Canada est fondé sur des principes qui reconnaissent la suprématie de Dieu et la primauté du droit, prenons un moment de réflexion personnelle. Whereas Canada is founded upon principles that recognize the supremacy of God and the rule of law, let us take a moment of personal reflection. Everybody. Always better when there's a lot of people in the room. I hear other people besides myself singing, so that's always a good thing. Item 4, additions, deletions, or amendments. Conseiller Lorrain.
Thank you. I have one addition and one deletion. So I have a notice of motion that I'm requesting to add at item 13 tonight. And the notice of motion deals with capital conversion principles and the Castle Richelieu Heritage Project. I believe it'll be read out tonight, and then it'll be debated in 2 weeks at our next council meeting, because we can't suspend the rules of procedure anymore to deal with it tonight.
That's right.
And I had requests, so that's my addition. My deletion is I had requested item 18A, which was staff's interpretation or review of the guiding principles that were adopted by council. And based on what I'm going to read out in the note, or what we read out in the notice of motion, I think it makes it a moot point for discussion tonight, because it was only going to be an information from staff to council without any other debate, and it wasn't going to deal with any specific project. It was just the guiding principles themselves. But I think the notice of motion will be clear when it's read out that it deals with that project. So
added under item 13A, notice of motion, Conseiller Lorrain.
And delete 18A
18A.
that I had requested.
Okay. Got that. Any other additions, amendments? Councillor Associate?
Yes, I just wanted to add the J.P. St. Pierre Memorial Golf Tournament. And also on 12A, on the integrity report, I just had something that I wanted to add, and that's being discussed.
Okay, so 18A is being removed. We'll name 18B for the J.P. St. Pierre Golf Tournament information. Okay. Conseiller Lorrain?
Sorry, I just wanted to make the comment that if I sound funny or whatnot, if I take some time to speak tonight, it's because I just had dental work done and I'm still frozen, so bear with me, please, if I slur any words.
So we'll tell the camera not to be on you when you're drinking your Diet Pepsi.
Please.
Okay. Conseiller Brisson.
Juste une clarification en mettant 14, est-ce que les membres du public, vu qu'il est sur l'agenda, peuvent en discuter pour donner des questions sur le principal?
Non, c'est enlevé de l'agenda.
Moi, je pourrais le remettre parce que pour que le monde ici peut poser des questions.
Sur le guiding principle, well, as Conseiller Lorrain stated that the point will be moved based on his notice of motion.
Yeah, but I want to
If-
put it back because the people did come here tonight since it was on the agenda at 17. So I want to
On
put it back.
18?
On 18, so I want to put it back so that the people are able to ask questions instead.
Let's be clear, the what's on the agenda is in regards to the notice of motion or the guiding principles and not in regards to any specific project. So if there's a question on the guiding principles this evening, that will be discussed, but we won't be talking about the Limoges Heritage or Castle project, if that's where we wanna go. Want to say that, eh?
Can we make a compromise to it and not have the discussion and just have the questions? Because the discussion would come at 18 anyway, be after the question period, so if we can, I think we can still allow questions on that item as a,
That's why
if we agree to suspend the rules of procedure and allow for questions on that item. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so there will be, so you would like to see it at the question period, not having a discussion
That's it.
from the council table?
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Everybody okay with that? Okay,
I have one more.
so it'll be under, well,
Just
it's
allow.
just a question là-dessus, c'est, there's nothing added to the agenda for it, so.
To add PR transport.
PR Transpo, okay, under item C, Conseiller Brisson, PR Transpo. Okay. So, adoption of the agenda, motion to approve the agenda as amended. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Conseiller Lorrain, seconded by Councillor Tanoski. All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. Item 6, disclosure of pecuniary interest. I see none. Item 7, adoption of minutes, regular council minutes of May 21st, 2019. Motion to approve the following minutes as presented. The regular council minutes of May 21st, 2019. Moved by Conseiller Lorrain, seconded Councillor Tanoski. Questions? Comments? No? All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. Presentations, we have none. Item 9, delegations, petitions, we have none. Item 10, consent items. Motion that all items listed under consent items be received as presented. Item A, proclamation and flag raising of October 2019 as Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Item B, minutes of the Limoges Citizens Committee from April 9th, 2019. Item C, minutes of the Accessibility Committee, March 27th, 2019. Item D, minutes of the Russell Historical Society of April 8th, 2019. Item E, minutes of the United Counties of Prescott-Russell, March 27th and April 24th, 2019. Need a mover and a seconder? Moved by Conseiller Brisson, seconded by Councillor Lorrain. All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. Item 11, reports from department and council committees. Item A, purchasing policy update, report FS 27-2019. The council receives report FS 27-2019 dated June 4, 2019 and adopts the proposed bylaw, being a bylaw to update the township's purchasing policy. Questions, comments, members of council? Anything to add from the administration, Mr. Godin?
Oui, merci, M. le maire. Bonsoir, chambres du conseil. S'il n'y a pas de questions, je ne vais pas aller en détail par rapport à tous les changements qu'on a apportés. Par contre, je voudrais quand même apporter votre attention at the bylaw itself. The clerk did flag a correction that she made for me. I made reference to section 271 that you saw on your agenda, but it's actually section 270, so just a minor detail I wanted to clarify to council about that correction.
Thank you very much. Question, commentaire? No? We'll move on to the next item. Item B, amendment to the Animal Care and Control Bylaw, report PIC 17-2019. The council receives report PIC 17-2019 dated June 4, 2019, and as recommended in this report, amend the Animal Care and Control Bylaw, adding section 10.1 A and B, dealing with animals left in vehicles, to remove the last phrases of section 13C2 and to repeal bylaw 2018-157. Questions, comments, members of council? Anything to add from the administration? Madame Bourdeau?
I just want to clarify that the section 10A, 10 1A and 10 1B. That's just to provide the staff to deal with the complaints that we do receive about animals left in hot cars. So it's just for this matter. So.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Well, no questions. We'll move on to item C. Blair Street Culvert Replacement Report ISPW 08-2019. The council receives report ISPW 08-2019 dated June 4th, 2019, and approves the postponement of the project to 2020. Questions, comments, member of council? Conseiller Brisson.
Oui, j'ai oublié de demander l'information avant. Dans le rapport, ça disait qu'il y avait eu 2 offres seulement, puis qui étaient beaucoup plus chères, mais de combien qui étaient?
Monsieur Leduc, Monsieur Bourgon.
Merci, Monsieur le maire. Donc, notre estimé le plus bas était 100 000 plus cher que ce qu'on avait prévu.
Qui étaient 350.
Exactement. Le budget est de 350.
350, c'était 450. Puis l'autre était semblable? Ou...
L'autre, un autre 100 000 de plus.
So, 100 000 du 200 000 au-dessus du budget.
Exactement.
Okay. D'autres questions, conseiller Lorrain?
So what are we gonna do different to have it at a different price next time? I'm just trying to understand the reasoning to not request additional funding versus delaying it, as we know construction costs don't go down, they normally go up. So what's the value of us waiting? The costs may go up, and we may be paying $550,000 next year, the year after, instead of $450 this year. I just wanna make sure we're doing both sides here.
Monsieur Leduc, Monsieur Bourgon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With the analysis that we did with our engineer that's doing the assessment of those culvert, what we believe it was our timing of putting the tender out versus the construction period, which really the window was only during the couple of summer months, which we believe that the contractor may already be overbooked or too busy since we went out end of April. So we believe that going this fall to secure those contractor like earlier to have a better price, and we'll merge another project with that tender as well. We have another culvert due for replacement next year, so we'll have we'll combine those 2 projects to have the benefit of to reduce the cost.
So essentially, we're looking at economies of scale because we'll have 2 projects as opposed to 1. And by offering the tender earlier, we'll be able to hopefully lock in bids before they actually confirm to other projects.
That's correct.
Conseiller Lorrain?
I'm gonna ask that when this item comes back next year, and that the history be included, that this did go for tender last year, tender prices were about 100,000 over the budget of 350,000, so that I can do the math and make sure that we balanced out and we didn't end up losing more by waiting. Thank you.
Conseiller Brisson?
C'est un peu en ligne avec le conseiller Lorrain. Peut-être que justement notre estimé était juste trop bas aussi, que probablement que pour être safe, de remettre un bon 100 ou 200 000 de plus. Puis mon autre question, c'est de savoir, là, dans le rapport, ça disait qu'il fallait remettre environ 5 000 $ dedans, mais est-ce que c'est safety issue avec la cabrette, qu'on est mieux d'y aller quand même, ou si c'est quand même safe, quelle sorte de réparation faut qu'il soit faite pour 5 000 $?
Monsieur Leduc, Monsieur Bourgon?
Monsieur le maire, donc dans le fond, c'est la maintenance qu'on aurait fait à un moment donné durant la vie de la structure. Présentement, la structure n'est pas à risque. Donc c'est pour ça aussi qu'on peut se dire qu'on est capable de patienter.
So there's no safety concerns if we wait another year.
Exactement.
C'est quoi que ça convient, le 5 000 $? C'est quelle sorte de...
On va faire une inspection approfondie, il y a certaines choses qui doivent être faites là, dans la structure à l'interne, dans le fond. Donc, c'est pas des travaux majeurs.
Okay.
Merci. Conseiller Lorrain?
So then at budget time, do you anticipate requiring additional funds for that project? Because if you're gonna ask for more money, then you may as well ask it now and do the project, right? So that's that's where I'm at. I mean, if you don't think you're gonna get it at a better price next year, then we may as well go ahead and do it and ask for the money. Otherwise, I'm assuming you're not gonna ask for money because you think you can get it at a better price next year. So I just wanna make sure we're not delaying something that doesn't need to be delayed.
Monsieur le Maire, en conseil, bonsoir. Well, we believe we're being overcharged right now. That's why we suggest the council to wait for next year. It doesn't say we'll be adding maybe some money on top of this, but certainly we feel we're being overcharged for this project right now.
Conseiller Brisson?
Bon, je comprends ça, mais tout le justement faire sûr, d'en remettre un peu juste faire sûr, mais c'est sûr que de demander comme c'est là, probablement que les compagnies sont toutes bouclées aussi pour leur chantier, fait que je comprends la situation.
Ok, merci beaucoup. D'autres questions? D'autres commentaires de l'administration? No? Move on to the next item. Item D, replacement of Wade Road Bridge, report ISPW 09-2019. The council receives report ISPW 08-2019 dated June 4th, 2019, and approves the proposed bylaw to award a contract and to authorize the entry into an agreement with Robert Excavation to replace the Wade Road Bridge for $924,556.90, plus $16,272.20 for a total of $940,829.10. This amount includes 1.76% of non-refundable HST. The council authorized the reallocation of the OSIF funding of $350,000 forecasted for the deck culvert repair in the following manner. To one, increase the Wade Road Bridge repair budget by $261,628, and two, to transfer $83,372 to the road capital budget in order to address emergency road repair work on Route 200 and Burden Road, and that the mayor and the clerk be authorized to sign the agreement. Questions, comments, members of council? Councilor Tanaski.
So just a question for Mr. Bogon, 33% increase on this project compared to what was budgeted, reasoning behind it, and I mean, it works out really well with what you're recommending in C, that we take that money from the culvert to pay for that, so I was just wondering why the 33% increase, and that was the plan for.
Monsieur Leduc, Monsieur Bogon.
That's a good question. If we could explain why the industry comes up with those numbers. The reason we feel it's more reasonable, we have more bidder, so we have like a better sample of the companies of what they're, and plus we have the road widening, so that's why we feel that it's a project that should move forward this year. It's a one that we've been pushing off for a couple of years already. So that's why we're coming forward in front of council to delay one, but to move forward with this one.
I think as well, we're a lot later than normal in the tendering process because of the election, our budget got approved early spring as opposed to late fall. So there's a gap period there considering that we've seen more savings in the last few years as we tender before the season starts. Other questions, comments, members of council? Conseiller Brisson?
Oui, puis je suis parfaitement d'accord de remettre de l'argent pour la route 200 pour faire de quoi. Justement, ma fille a arraché un morceau de son char, de son Kéroff, puis c'est de quoi qu'il faut être fait parce que là, elle était chanceuse qu'elle n'a pas perdu contrôle. Mais il ne faut pas attendre que quelqu'un arrive un accident avant de faire de quoi avec ce bout de chemin-là. Je suis bien d'accord qu'on fasse même. Je suggérais je sais que c'est beaucoup d'argent, mais d'étudier la possibilité avant de refaire le pavage et toute la construction, les grosses courbes, si on pouvait étudier pour les amortir, un peu comme qui a été fait dans Route 300. Étudier ces choses-là pour bien ça.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Brisson, Conseiller Brisson. Other questions or comments? Conseiller Lannick?
Yeah, just for Mr. Leduc, I'm just gonna ask that for budget time, if we can just ensure we go back and look at all of the estimates that we're gonna have for 2020, because I think it's 2 or 3 times now over the last couple of meetings that our estimates, that our projections that we have in budget are way off from what they come to council for, and we're looking for additional funds afterwards. I think maybe just an extra set of eyes on it this time around and make sure it's going into 2020 that we have better numbers, projected numbers. I mean, obviously we can't control all the construction costs, but when you're estimating it out, maybe it's a couple of phone calls to get an idea of what it's going for these days, or the other municipalities or other contractors or whatnot, just to get an idea, a better idea. So I think we've seen that over the last little while, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Conseiller Lorrain. Anything to add from the administration? No, Monsieur Leduc?
Well, normally we base our projections based on the current year or the last year project costs, so therefore, but we certainly try to make further calls if we can do that.
Merci beaucoup. Item E, Snowmobile Crossing Report, report PR 15-2019. The council received report PR 15-2019 dated June 4th, 2019, and approves the department's recommendation to allow a pilot project of 1 year for the 2019-2020 winter season for a snowmobile crossing on the recreational trail at the opening close to the Campbell Pool Store. The administration will come back in spring 2020 to give an update on this project. Questions, comments, members of council? Conseiller Tarnowski?
I just want to thank staff for going through and getting us a timely report. I think this is good for economic development and good overall for in terms of activities for our residents.
Thank you very much. Anything to add from the administration? No, pretty self-explanatory. Move on to item F, Recreation Complex Information Report, report PR 16-2019. The council receives this information report PR 16-2019 dated June 4, 2019. And questions, comments, members of council? Conseiller Brisson?
Oui, moi, quand je lisais le rapport, j'ai un peu de problème de donner le contrat de suite à Collier parce qu'il n'y a jamais eu d'appel d'offres ou d'appel d'intérêt pour d'autres compagnies. On a, comme qui a été présenté dans le rapport, sur le comité, il y en a 3 que Mme Vittard nous avait proposé qu'on rencontre, mais il n'y a jamais eu de choses formelles pour aller voir qui serait intéressé, quelle firme qui serait intéressée de soumettre un projet pour le REC complexe. C'est pour ça que moi j'ai de la misère d'accepter ce rapport-là sans, je dirais, comme de faire l'appel pour donner la chance à toutes les firmes de le faire. Puis le site plan va être présenté par la firme qu'on va choisir.
Monsieur Leduc?
Monsieur le membre du conseil, je pense que ce rapport-ci, c'est pour relancer la balle sur qu'est-ce qu'on veut. On est seulement à la base maintenant de savoir qu'est-ce qui peut fitter sur le terrain de 60 acres. Qu'est-ce qui pourrait avoir lieu sur ce terrain-là comme projet. Puis, est-ce que le conseil a nous lancé des idées sur quelles options qu'il cherche à faire évaluer? Exemple, nombre de patinoires, piscine ou pas de piscine, salle de spectacle ou non, autres items qu'il peut y avoir. Donc, on veut lancer au conseil certaines idées, puis avoir une directive sur quoi travailler. Vraiment, on n'a aucune vraiment direction sur quoi travailler, on part très large. On aimerait seulement ratisser un petit peu. Donc, le projet Collier, c'est strictement pour nous lancer à ce moment-ci et non pas pour avoir tout le projet du complexe en général. C'est sûr que pour nous lancer, pour avoir une directive du conseil sur quoi travailler. Donc, c'est là qu'on va se limiter avec eux autres. Ça ne veut pas dire qu'ils vont devenir automatiquement les personnes qu'on va choisir pour la gestion du projet comme tel, mais définitivement pour lancer les débats, la discussion pour le conseil, puis avoir des directives pour savoir comment commencer.
Alors, dans ce cas-ci, notre politique, elle permet, dans le montant de 25 000 sans aller à appel d'offres.
Exact. C'est sous le montant de 25 000, donc on peut faire cette allocation-là. J'ai l'autorité de le faire, puis on va essayer de partir avec quelque chose de base. Donc, c'est vraiment minimal comme étude.
Donc, vraiment, ils vont regarder le terrain, nous donner des options possibles, qu'est-ce qui pourrait être là-dessus, des coûts estimés, puis après ça, le conseil va avoir une première étape pour comment, how to move forward, c'est ça?
Ben, l'idée, c'est de présenter peut-être 3-4 différents projets. Puis le conseil est intéressé aux 3-4 projets, ou à 2 sur 4, ou à d'autres options à dessiner. Donc, c'est vraiment avoir une idée, on part de où? Parce que je pense que le conseil, c'est pas clair encore exactement où est-ce qu'on va aller avec ce projet-là. Le montant du budget, c'est pas encore son ici, mais on va vous présenter des chiffres aussi sur, en général, ce qui coûtait combien. Et il fait d'opération également.
Parfait. Merci, M. Leduc. Conseiller Lorrain?
I fully agree that council needs to make a decision on what we are to provide options of what we think we want, and ask for that to be evaluated. In terms of the timeline, So if council agrees to this, how long will this take for you to come back in front of us with those other options to then, like, what's the next steps after that? And how, and what is that time frame? Because we can sit here and be doing studies 5 years from now, and I would pull my hair out then as well.
Monsieur Leduc, Madame Guitard?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council. So yes, we had this discussion already with Collier, and they'd be able to provide all this information by the August meeting of this year. So we'd have some options to present to council. We'd have a revised site plan also to be
Consider.
presented.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions, comments? Councillor Sosi?
Yeah, I was just wondering, are they still considering, I see on the list here is a library, is that still in the plan?
Monsieur Leduc, Madame Guitard?
I think that's my file. Right now, we have no direction. It'd be part of maybe some proposal, maybe some options for council to discuss. So that's the purpose of presenting what's the site plan for and what's the space. What space is available for that kind of project? And if council wants us to go in that route, then we will have direction from council then to say, let's study this further or not. But certainly it's not off the table.
And is the group still meeting or is it dissolved now?
Monsieur Leduc, Madame Guitard? I believe at this point in time, when we put our committees together, we did not form this committee because we
No.
felt we didn't have enough information to move forward.
Message.
Other questions, comments, members of council? Quelque chose d'autre à ajouter de l'administration? No? Move on to the next item, item G, amendments to council members' remuneration expense bylaw and to council's pregnancy and parental leave bylaw, CAO 2019. The council receives a chart dated May 21st, 2019 from the chief administrative officer with the proposed amendments to 1, council members' remuneration expenses bylaw number 2018-69 and its amendment bylaw 2018-104. And 2, council's pregnancy and parental leave bylaw 2019-033, and that council approves the proposed amending bylaw. Questions, comments, members of council? Anything to add from the administration? Monsieur Leduc?
En ce moment-ci, M. le maire, c'est strictement la base qu'on va faire, puis on va revenir sur ce sujet-là d'ici la fin de l'automne.
Merci beaucoup. D'autres questions, commentaires? No. Move on to the next item, item 12, item A, Integrity Commissioner Inquiry Report dated May 29th, 2019. That council receives for information purposes. The final inquiry report dated May 29, 2019 from Mr. John Saywell, the Integrity Commissioner for the Township of Russell, respective files RUSS-1901 and RUSS-1902 regarding Councilor Cindy Sosi. Questions, comments, members of council? Councilor Tanasi.
I'd just like to underline the report stating that Councillor Saucier's exemplary openness and transparency through the entire process, and that should be noted publicly. So, well done.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Councilor Sosi.
Well, I had requested to have a comment at this point, and you put me here, yes?
Yep.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to make it public so people would know what this was about, that, I was accused by 4 plaintiffs of being in a conflict of interest over the water and sewer issue, as I too am on a well and septic and live in the Township of Russell. I felt all along that I had no monetary gain and was only representing the people who voted for me, and I had a common issue. I had also read the Conflict of Interest Act, and it said that I was not in conflict due to the fact that it was a common issue and it was utilities, which was stated in section 4. So I sought legal direction through the township and was, I didn't have to seek out a lawyer. That was a personal financial restraint. I am concerned about the cost to taxpayers for this report and possibly an unnecessary investigation. And it was also a very stressful period, but anyway, I persevered, and I'm not working for anyone other than the township and the people who voted me in. The financial statements are online if you need to attend. So I attended an integrity workshop at AMO last summer and feel strongly about ethics and morals and honesty. I will always have a clear conscience in my decisions, although I agree, and from all you people here tonight, sometimes the decisions are difficult. I had to meet with the Integrity Commissioner, which is an 1.5-hour recorded interview, but the outcome has been in my favor. I've been exonerated, And he had stated that he felt I showed exemplary transparency throughout the whole ordeal, because I stated at the beginning of every meeting that I was unwell and septic. I will continue to work hard and continue to work respectfully with staff and my colleagues, and I thank you. I'd like to thank those who supported me during this period. Thank you.
Conseiller Laurent?
Yeah, I wasn't gonna speak on this, but now I will. So, in terms of the report that was put out, we passed a code of conduct recently for council. And that code of conduct has a clause in there, or a section in there, about suspected breaches of the code of conduct. And one of the sections of the code of conduct is conflict of interest. So in that code of conduct, and I'll state it again, that I did not vote in favor of the code of conduct. I thought it lacked some material items in it. However, I'm still bound, and as members of council, we are still bound by that code of conduct, regardless of what we feel about it. So, when I was reviewing the code of conduct on a separate matter, I came across a section that talks about reporting of suspected breaches. So, because there was a suspicion of a breach of the code of conduct, that left me without an option, or I could be found and brought up on a report for breach of the code of conduct by not reporting something that was suspected. So, and it's discussions that we've had, and I felt that in that circumstance, I didn't have an option, and I sought out counsel as well, and I was told exactly the same thing. If I did not make a report, then I could be found liable of a breach of the code of conduct. That is why I was one of the people that had to put in that report. So it had nothing personal to do with Council Associate. It's a process. It's a brand new process that was put in place by three or four members of council that I didn't agree with. However, I was left with no option. So I'm just making that statement based on the comments that were just made. So, and then I don't think there's any ill will in the process. It's a process that the province has laid upon us with an integrity commissioner, and for me, I felt that I was following our process as I was required. So,
Thank you very much, Conseiller Laurent. Councillor Associate.
Well, I just want to add that I did vote in favor of the code of conduct, so I am supportive of the process, but it was, again, just there was a couple of accusations that I knew were inaccurate, so that's why I was, concerned about it. But I understand the process and why, Councillor Laurent, you had to take that representation.
Thank you very much, Councillor Associate. I'll just point out two parts as well on this report, that all members were unanimous expressing their appreciation for Councillor Associate as a council member. That being said, the other section, it says, there is no doubt that Councillor Associate has a pecuniary interest. However, in this case, the Integrity Commissioner has found that you are exempt because of that clause. So therefore, as members of council, we were justified in stating that there was a pecuniary interest. The Integrity Commissioner has confirmed it in his report. However, you are exempt, and the file has been, it was the first kick at the can for everybody. Nobody's been through this before. As Councillor Laurent said, if members of council did not bring this forward, we ourselves could be found in contempt or fined as not being following the code of conduct. So that being said, it's gone through. So any other questions, comments? I don't think there's anything from the administration's point of view. We'll move on. Item 13, notice of motion. Madame Camille Lafemme, if you'll read the notice of motion from Conseiller Laurent.
Yes, hello council members. So I just received this notice of motion, It's moved by Councillor Jamie Lorrain and seconded by Councillor André Brisson. It's entitled Notice of Motion, Capital Conversion Principles, and the Castlebo Richelieu Heritage Project. And it reads as follows. Whereas Notice of Motion, Capital Conversion Principles was approved by Council in March 2019 in order to provide guiding principles to administration on water and sewer projects for residents on private services. And whereas Council recently exempted the Church Street project from these guiding principles and decided to carry the cost of the residents who did not want to connect at the time of the project. And whereas many residents of the Castlebo Heritage Richelieu area have expressed concerns over having to cover the cost of their neighbors based on the NOM and Notice of Motion, thank you, and guiding principles. And whereas these additional expenses could cause either delays or the outright cancellation of the project, which of course would cause additional costs to those residents in the future if they wanted to proceed at a later date. And whereas a solution to avoid these additional costs would be to provide a similar exemption to the residents who choose not to proceed, I imagine, as those from the Church Street project, to allow for this project to move forward now to avoid increased costs in the future. Now therefore be it resolved that Council for the Corporation of the Township of Russell directs staffs to, there's three options, three bullets. First, to proceed with the project analysis and review and consideration of the same exemption and of the guiding principle as was afforded the Church Street project. Number two, immediately notify all 35 affected properties of this change and provide them with updated documents in French and English so that they can effectively provide their decisions to move forward. And three, create a policy for private service conversions that would replace and rescind the Notice of Motion Capital Conversion Principles approved on March 4th, 2019, and present it to Council for adoption prior to any future projects within the township.
Thank you very much, Madame Camille-Laflamme. So notice of motion has been given. This will be brought up at the next council meeting in 2 weeks.
Yes.
We'll move on to the next item. Item 14, question period on meeting of the day. I'll ask anyone who has questions to please come up to the lectern and state your name and address and ask questions in regards to today's agenda. Yeah, or the guiding principles if it's specific to the guiding principles.
Sorry. Yeah, forgive me if you've already covered some of this. Sorry, Kathy McHugh, I live on 80 Road. Just
That's good, okay.
There you go.
Yeah, I have to work till 6, so I can't get here on time. But just regarding the conflict of interest allegations, okay, I'll try just to ask a question and editorialize, I know. Had any of you who laid the complaint reviewed the Conflict of Interest Act and specifically Section 4J that was cited in the report? Because it seems fairly clear to me in there.
Seems clearly fair to you. Congratulations. I think the Conflict of Interest Act is a very detailed document. It's a legal document that has a lot of clauses in there. I have taken training multiple times in regards to conflict of interest. Again, if the suspicion is there, our code of conduct did not allow flexibility for members of council. We had to submit a request, and that's what council has done. Want to say that? Council members, sorry.
Sorry, it's just in response to that. I don't believe it's council's opinion, council's role to interpret 4J. It's council's role to advise whether or not there's a suspicion of a breach of the code of conduct. And that's why the integrity commissioner is there now to review that and make a determination on it. And then he went further and offered his opinion on whether or not there was an exemption that was followed. But the pecuniary interest is there. Now it's his opinion that 4J applies. That doesn't mean that everyone's opinion is the same, and we don't get that luxury to decide if that opinion is right or wrong, or for us to make our own opinion. Is there a pecuniary interest or is there not? And it was determined there was, so our suspicions were accurate. But whether or not she fell under an exemption, that's for others to make that presumption or that determination. That's not for us individually.
But the exemption spells out that if it's not a personal and individual pecuniary interest, but one that is shared with other ratepayers, then it doesn't apply.
But there's no definition on number of others. I've read it as well, and I've gone through training as well. So for me, if it's ambiguous to me, then I didn't have an option. I had to report it. That's based on the code of conduct. That's not based on the fact that whether I like or I don't like what Cindy does, because I do. I've said it many times. We've been on the campaign trail together. Like, the thing is, we didn't have a choice. At least I felt I didn't have a choice. You'd have to ask the other two members. But for me, I didn't have a choice based on what is documented and what is written. I don't have the luxury of forming an opinion on 4J as an exemption. That's for someone else to make that decision, whether it's the integrity commissioner or a judge. I'm neither. So I don't have that option. Do you think it was something I wanted to do? Absolutely not. You can ask everyone that I spoke to about it. And even if you listen to my recording, it's the same thing. I'm not happy with having to be here. I'm actually frustrated because I voted against the code of conduct. I didn't think it was right that we had to do it, and in fact, I spelled out conflict of interest. If you go back to the February 4th meeting, I spelled that out as one of the items that should have been deleted. So to come back and suggest that we did anything wrong, we didn't. We had to do what we did.
Also, as we all mentioned, it's nothing against Cindy at all. It was by the principal, because with the training, we were also mentioned that some example of, that it was if it was a road that you're on it could be considered conflict of interest at that time. And then it was the sewage. So with the example, it was ambiguous, and whenever we met with the person, he wasn't even sure for himself. He had to look more deeply, and it was his opinion. And it might have happened, and he did mention that if it would have been somebody else, he might have interpreted another way. So that's why it was our only role that we had to notify them, and it was not my pleasure. That's my comment.
Thank you, yeah. Can I just ask one more question? Just with the two complaints, I know they weren't simultaneous. One was filed before the other, or when were you aware of the pending complaint by Mr. Patnaud?
When we read the report.
Yeah, I didn't even knew that Mr. Patnaud had put a complaint. I thought it was only us three because we signed on the same complaint, but never were we aware that the commissioner did mention it, that there was another complainant.
Never specified who was that made the complaint. The integrity commissioner simply said there was another complaint that was made in regards to the same matter, so he would be addressing both at the same time.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
Harry Baker, Forest Road, Russell, 12A, the same subject. Did you speak to the municipal lawyer before making your complaint?
Did we speak to the municipal lawyer? No, we did not speak to the municipal lawyer.
I think Mr. Lawrence said that he's had legal opinion before he made that.
Go say that.
No, I said I sought counsel. I didn't necessarily speak to a lawyer.
Okay.
Counsel of others to determine whether or not I was interpreting our code of conduct appropriately.
Okay. So it wasn't a lawyer.
No, I did not spend money on a lawyer to tell me whether or not I suspected a breach of code of conduct.
Well, Madame Saucier did, and will she be reimbursed for that, now that she's been exonerated?
Good question.
Because I understood that,
So
that she
did
was
we-
not allowed to speak to the municipal lawyer. She got her own lawyer, legal
Let's
opinion.
just be clear, the law has changed recently. And when the law changed to put the integrity commissioner in place, before that period of time, any legal, and staff can correct me if I'm wrong, any legal opinion by members of council had to be sought out on their own accord. It was not the municipality that was covering those costs. Now that we have an integrity in place, integrity commissioner in place, council members now have the option of seeking advice from our integrity commissioner. Is that correct, Mr. Lidzik? Yes. So, when Councillor Saucier sought legal advice, the rules in place were that it was her responsibility to seek out that advice. Now the law has changed. Since she sought her advice, the law has changed, put integrity commissioner in place. Now, going forward, if members of council have questions, they can put them in writing to the integrity commissioner to get an opinion.
I think you should reconsider then, whether she should have her, fees reimbursed.
Well,
And
I think that would
personally, I
be,
think she
that would be
deserves
up
an
to
apology.
Councillor Saucier to make that request.
And I
if
believe
so
she
chooses.
deserves an apology.
Okay.
No.
Any other questions? Nope. We'll move on to item 15, resolutions. Motion, item A, motion that council approves all recommendations listed on the agenda under item number 11, reports from department and council committees. And item B, motion that council approve all recommendations listed, I'll do A first. A, need a mover and a seconder to put it on the table. Moved by Conseiller Tarnowski, seconded by Conseiller Brisson. All those in favor of item A? All those opposed? Item A is carried. And item B was the motion that council approve all recommendations listed on the agenda under item 12, reports from an investigator or the ombudsman. Need a mover and seconder put on the table. Moved by Conseiller Brisson, seconded by Conseiller Larin. All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. Item 16, bylaws. Motion that council approves bylaws 2019-085 to 2019-088, inclusively for first, second, and third reading as listed on the agenda. Need a mover and a seconder? Moved by Conseiller Larin, seconded by Councillor Tarnowski. All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. Item 17, new business reports. We have none. Item 18B, Councillor Saucier for the JP St. Pierre tournament.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention that the 5th annual JP St. Pierre Memorial Golf Tournament will be Saturday, July 13th, and it's at the Cloverdale Links in Winchester. And so there is information on where if you're interested in putting in a team, and they said it's going to be bigger in the event this year because it is the 5th anniversary of JP's passing.
Thank you very much, Councillor Saucier. Item C, Conseiller Brisson, PR Transpo.
Yeah, just to make an update, and maybe if you have some other update from the United Counties. It's a project that is through the United Counties. They have a grant for having local transport in Prescott-Russell. The schedule would be from 7 in the morning to 9 at night. There would be 2 buses to cover Prescott-Russell of 10 passengers each, and with one place for somebody with limitation access. It's a trial for a period of 4 years, and it will be for medical rendezvous, for the grocery that you'll be able to go. And the cost will be $4 to $5 to a maximum of 6 for 1 week. And they plan to start the program in September 2019. and they had sent us some route. The only comment that I want to transmit to Mr. Mayor, just that, like for Russell municipality, they went Emblem, Russell, and 400, instead of having a route that goes like Russell, Emblem, and combining Limoges, Casselman to by Saint-Isidore, and having the loop. Also, one lack I did find on the others, there's overview of services with stars for the other municipality. For us, there's only one, that is the arena in Russell. There's nothing for the dome. There's nothing for the shopping center or for the grocery store in Russell and Emblem. So I think there's a lack, because there's some other that has a lot.
Okay.
Making sure that that's addressed, but as I was saying, for my view, if there's two buses, having one that goes from Russell to Saint-Isidore, doing the loop, would be more critical. One other question I have for you, I don't know if they discussed, does it work that they have to call?
Well, the program is still being
Yeah.
evaluated at this point. One item of note is that while there was funding for this program, the funding was given by the previous provincial government. Now, will the new provincial government continue with that funding? At this point in time, I think it's safe to say we're not sure. We'll see what kind of interest there is, and staff will make a presentation once all the details are finalized, and then we'll be able to see what the impact of the program is. Hopefully, the program is available, and it's being utilized. Unfortunately, my concern at this point in time is that there won't be enough usage to justify the very expensive costs associated with this program.
Because I know that it as being on the accessibility committee, it was a request that we had from some person, some different people, especially some in wheelchair, that it would have been, that it would be a real good service to have, because it's quite limited. So I'm just hoping that it goes, but you said depending on the demand, but is there a way that the people can let?
Well, once the program has been finalized and the program is launched, obviously there'll be ads in the paper, there'll be social media. We'll be advising all the residents that this system is in place and how to proceed by using the system. So that is all information that will be coming forward in the next few months.
It's just that I thought it was important information for the other councillor to be aware of.
Okay, thank you very much. So, 7-18, item 19, public consultations. J'ai-tu manqué quelque chose, Monsieur le Duc, Madame Victor?
Can I just remind the public tomorrow night that it's our cycling plan, so
Yes.
we welcome the residents to come and see us. It's an open public consultation night. So we'd like to hear your comments and your ideas.
This is tomorrow evening at this room at
In this
6:30 p.m.?
6:30 to 8:30.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Madame Victor. We'll move on to item 19, public consultations, hearings. We have none. Item 20, closed session. Motion to move into closed session at the hour of 6:54 p.m. to address matters pertaining to Section 239 of the Municipal Act 2001, SO 2001, Chapter 25, consider matters relating to 1. Working conditions for certain employees, Section 2D, labor relations or employee negotiations. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Conseiller Bisson, seconded by Conseiller Lorraine. All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. We're now in closed session. We'll come back in 10-minute break. So at 7:05 p.m. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us this evening.